Tampa Bay Spirits presents Haunted Campfire Tales Live. Welcome. Gather around the fire. Get comfortable, but not too comfortable. The true ghost tales are about to unfold.
Good evening. I'm Rob.
I'm Joan.
And we're with Tampa Bay Spirits.
And you want to introduce yourselves, people?
Robin.
Joy.
I'm Jess, also with Tampa Bay Spirits.
We're really glad that you tuned in tonight. We're going to do a show about hauntings after post-tsunami hauntings. I know what it's about.
And we're sad that
Beth
and Les can't be with us tonight. Founders of Tampa Bay Spirits, and they're usually our co-hosts on the show. It's Beth's birthday, and they're out celebrating with a surprise visit from her son.
Yeah.
So we wish them all the best and
Yeah.
a happy evening.
Happy birthday, Beth.
Yeah, happy birthday, Beth.
We're not going to sing. Anyway,
nobody would want that.
Want to let everybody know that for the next 3 days and a few hours more than that, about 80 hours, I guess, altogether, all the merch on Tampa Bay Spirits website is on sale. All the shirts and mugs and
totes
and everything that's that we have with Tampa Bay Spirits logo is on sale. And you just go to tampabayspirits1.com. And that's for the next 3 days. Pretty exciting stuff, up to 35% off.
It's exciting for me because I've been waiting for the sale.
Yeah, real exciting.
I'm going shopping.
all the proceeds from sales in our shop go toward our investigation costs. Yeah. So any helping to offset
if you want to be twinsies with us.
Yes, we all have the same thing.
Those are nice.
They are nice. I get the triple blend one. They're super, super comfy. Because I can't have anything tighter on my neck. It just...
Yeah, either.
Yeah, it's like, well, do you know most sensitive people can't? Most people that are psychic cannot have anything around their neck.
I did not know that because I walk through the house going...
I know, exactly. I used to cut big holes in mine and stuff, and I thought I was wacky. And then I found out that's very common with sensitive people. One of those weird things that psychic people have, I mean, amongst other things. High blood pressure is also common, and migraines that we've talked about and all that kind of stuff. All the good stuff.
Yeah.
I know. Yay. Yay us. Jesse, did you want to do a card pull tonight?
Sure.
Great.
I have my handy tarot deck right here. So talk amongst yourselves and I will cut the deck.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Can we talk about anything that's for public consumption? That was a joke.
These are my pretty cards.
Did Adam buy those for you?
He did. This is a botanical deck.
They're pretty.
Called Ophidia Rosa by Layla and Olive. You can
That's
see.
nice.
Yeah, they are pretty.
There you go. And they're all botanicals. I got it from a shop in Iowa City, Iowa. Online. They have a little online shop and they have all kinds of fun witchy stuff. And they have, it's called Heim, Heim. And they have all kinds of fun stuff. The owner of the shop makes really cute ceramics, mugs and glasses and little dishes. And it's a small business. I love it. And she carries stuff from small businesses from all over that have all kinds of really fun, unusual things and crystals and all kinds of cool stuff. So shout out to them. I love that shop. We can
What
put
was
the
the
link
name
in
of
the
it?
show. Heim, like Heim
Okay.
in Iowa City. I'll send the link to Dad so he can put it in the show notes too.
Okay.
We had on Shelley who reads shells, and like she explained, it's not like predicting anything or telling anything psychically. It's just that depending on what the shell is like, that if you're drawn to that, then it's actually yourself speaking to yourself, And I kind of think tarot cards are a lot like that. When you pull the card, it just brings up stuff that may be hidden back here someplace, and helps you to focus on that better.
I agree. I feel like it's a tool you can use to like help organize your thoughts, just kind of like anything else, and sometimes can you can use it to draw out things that you're like, oh wow, like I hadn't thought about it that way.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a useful tool.
Yeah. And it wasn't really ever meant to be any kind of magical or mystical thing. It was a parlor game, card game.
Yes, it was a game for rich people.
So now we're all rich.
I pulled.
Okay.
Right here.
What is that plant?
What'd you say?
What is that plant? You can show the card again. You're on solo layout. Oh yeah,
it looks
that
like
really pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love these cards. They're really beautiful illustrations. And here we'll pull out you can continue to talk about yourselves.
Okay.
Okay. Joy and Robin, have you had any experiences this last week or last month since we've seen you last, as far as supernatural stuff?
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I was going to say, no, I was just going to say no. So go right ahead.
No, I was just going to say our dog is dying of cancer, and we lost. Well, actually, we've lost 2 dogs in the last few years, but we lost one that was very young from taking his vaccination last year, and they were good buddies. And I have been, they were always upstairs with me, and that's kind of where we had his urn for a long time. And Bailey has been, as sick as he is, he's been going upstairs by himself, and he's always stayed with my husband and I, and follows us everywhere. But he'll just go up there by himself, and sometimes I'll hear like scratching on a door or something, and he'll go up there. And I've just been, in my mind, it's like maybe Jake is there waiting for him or something, kind of makes me feel better.
Yeah.
But it's just strange for him to go up there when nobody's up there.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so that's the only thing. And I hope, because, it could be any time now. It's been really tough, and, and I'm sure y'all have lost dogs like that, but it's, it's tough. And it's nice to think maybe Jake's, there with him.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That is nice. I'm sure he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure he is.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our neighbor across the street had a dachshund, tricolor dachshund, which they're really cute, They're with that color, the 3 different colors on them. And we went on that 2-month trip, right? And Bob, that was the dog's name, was Bob, was always had been sick for a long time, but they'd been, holding it at bay and stuff like that. But we just felt that it wouldn't be, too long. So while we were gone, we both thought, oh, I bet Bob's going to be gone by the time we get home. And he was. He died shortly after we left. But it's just really hard. I mean, even when it's your neighbor's dog, just that you know, it's like terrible. You feel awful.
Mhm.
It's a family member.
Yep, it is.
And it's a family member that doesn't judge you ever.
I know.
Right.
It's a family member.
No matter how cranky you are.
That's right. No matter whether you do everything they want or not.
Right.
I know, no matter what you smell like or look like,
Right.
or how you're behaving, they are so loving, and pets are really special, and they have they change your body physically when you pet them. It
Yes.
actually has a physical impact on your stress levels, on your blood pressure, and that can be measured. So I think it's something really special, and it's a huge loss. So
Yeah.
Somebody told me they read a book one time. I have no idea what it was, that and the whole crux of the thing is that you were able to get that dogs and pets were angels, and that how you treated them was whether or not you were going to get into heaven, which I thought that was a very interesting concept.
Yeah, I'm in big trouble.
I've never trusted people who treated animals badly.
Right.
Like that's like a major red flag.
Yes.
If you have somebody
Yep.
that's like not good to animals, you're like,
Mhm.
I
Right.
do. I yell at, like, especially now because I'm dog sitting and they're driving me nuts. So I yell at them, and they both look at me like, Grandma, like, stop it then.
I think there's a little difference between correcting and being
Yeah,
mean.
and mistreating. Yes.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
huge difference. Everybody needs discipline, whether we
Right.
like it or not.
Or we'd be in trouble for all the things we yelled children about.
Yeah. During the last hurricane, we had to evacuate. So our daughter Colleen said, come on over to our house and stay with us because they had an extra room. And we did. And they have a very large Great Dane, very large, sweet Great Dane. She's the sweetest girl. And, you know, we have Missy, our little 9-pound dog. And she's very sweet, but she just doesn't like very many people, and she doesn't like other dogs. And so Scarlett comes over all excited because Scarlett loves dogs, and her little dog that our daughter had passed away this year. And so Scarlett's been very lonely. So she was like, oh, goody, Grandma brought me a playmate. And she comes trotting over, right? And Missy goes deep in her throat, and Scarlett backed off. She backed away. She actually walked backwards.
Poor thing.
And she is so sweet. She honestly, she is. She's like, sorry. I didn't mean anything. By the time we left, Missy was letting her sniff her and stuff. And it was funny because literally Scarlett's snout is bigger than most of Missy.
For sure.
So when she goes to touch noses, it's like Missy gets every part touched.
So, Jesse, what'd you come up with?
yeah. So the card I drew is the Four of Pentacles, which I'll just kind of show.
Wait a minute, we'll put you on solo layout again. There you go.
And Pentacles are interesting because they focus a lot on finances and things like that. I was looking up because the deck that I have, it comes with like a little guide with all the suits, and they each have like a little saying that goes along with them. For this one, it says, a healthy heart needs steady care. The Four of Pentacles is asking you to re-examine your relationship with finances, to look at where you're spending your priorities and all of those things, which I'm sure is something probably a lot of us are doing right now, thanks to the economy. I know we are over here, but it also is asking us to focus on what really matters as opposed to the money itself, and redirecting your energy towards that. So it's kind of a lovely thing. It's asking us to remember that even in times when finances might be challenging, or when we might want to focus on material things, that what we really should be investing ourselves in and our energy in is the things that really matter, like our relationships and our loved ones, and the things that are you can't measure with money and that are irreplaceable. So.
Awesome.
Okay.
That's really good. Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you.
I did want to say that Rob was going through some of our flash drives from Haunted Hill House when we did the investigation. And we didn't think that we had pictures of that fox that we told you about, that when we left, it had shifted back about 4 inches and its head was facing towards us, and no one had done that. Rob did get a picture of it early on when we were setting up. So when we can, we'll, like maybe on the next show, we'll show you the difference, the way it was all night, and then just as we were leaving, how it had turned its head to look at us.
On the last show, we showed you a couple of pictures, but the one
Right.
wasn't a real straight on one that really showed it, you know. So we found a good one.
Yeah, and so we could see that it had actually been moved about 4 inches back, and the head turned.
Wow.
So how that happened by itself, I don't know.
Strangeness.
But it was a little creepy.
Just a little.
Not scary, creepy. It's like, ugh.
Do we want to do tools of the trade before we get started, or do we want to do it?
Oh, okay. After? Let's do tools of the trade, because I did a tools of the trade on the SLS camera, which if you've ever seen, it's when they do you see stick figures and stuff. So
yeah. The wave and all that.
Yes, the wave and all that kind of stuff.
So here we go. Ready?
Yeah. All right, today we're going to show you the SLS camera. As you can see, there is a stick figure dancing around on my dining room chair there. I do not believe that is a real entity, I should say. The way we can tell is we can ask it to respond to us and see if we get an intelligent response. Would you please lift your right hand and wave at me? Nothing. No response, see? Would you please lift your right arm and wave at me? Again, no response. This tool is very useful in filming entities, but you have to understand what you're doing and know how to use it. Now, we know that the Kinect was made as a game system so that you could watch yourself, see yourself bowling or, playing tennis or baseball or whatever. What happened was, while people were using this, they would see stick figures walking behind themselves, and that went up on the internet. And paranormal investigators saw that, and they were like, now there's no one really there, but there's stick figures walking behind them. We could probably use this if we were ghost hunting to find an entity. And you can. But you also have to know that it was made to map out the human body. So if it sees anything that it can structure as a human body, it will. Sometimes there'll be a towel hanging in the room, or as you see here, the dining room chair is a really good example. And that is not an intelligent entity. There, it just went off the screen because I moved, came back again. See, that doesn't look like anything. But you'll notice on some of these paranormal shows that they do try to tell that it is an entity when there's really nothing there at all except a chair. It isn't your Uncle Fred. Ta-da.
Thank you.
Well, that was interesting. That was really interesting. Have y'all been able to find something that couldn't be identified?
Oh, definitely. You can
Right.
you can definitely find spirit if spirit's there, but you just really have to know how to use it and what you're doing and what can set it off and understand the software.
We actually have a film that's posted on carternovels.com, right?
Yeah, in the paranormal
On
corner.
the paranormal corner
Okay.
of a film that we took, a SLS film that we took
in
up
Gettysburg.
in Gettysburg at the Hanging Tree.
Yeah.
And we had been looking all over. There was nothing. And then we get to the Hanging Tree and boom, there's two figures hanging up there. And
It was
we
really
had
sad.
communication with them and everything.
Had
And
a lot of communication.
but the whole time we've been using the camera, nothing had shown up. So we're pretty confident in our results on that.
Paul Hollis said, "Interesting camera."
Oh, hi, Paul.
Yeah, it is. We have two of them, and we do like to use them, and you can record, and that's why we have the recorded section of that the Hanging Tree. But we've decided I can no longer use it when we're actually doing an investigation. Because I always forget to turn on the record part. I'm so excited to be talking to an entity, right? I don't hit record. Lorraine, let me see. Komasic, am I saying your name right? I'm sorry if I'm not. Carrie said, how cool. It is. It's very cool. And it's very useful. But one time we were doing an investigation in a home, and Beth was standing okay, so it's important to know where people are standing too. So Beth was standing against a wall, and we both felt something in that room. And so I had come in with the SLS camera to see if we could find something, and there was nothing beside her that could have looked like a body, that the software would have said, oh, this is a person. I better make a stick figure. And all of a sudden, a very small figure appeared beside her, very small, and actually reached up to hold her hand. And I didn't hit record.
Another thing on that,
Sorry.
on the SLS camera, is the pictures that you're seeing are in reverse. So
Yes.
you have to be careful of that too, because you may think over here is nothing, that would make that shape, but really it's over here.
Yeah.
It is totally mirror image. So
yeah, you really have to know
be
what you're
careful.
doing, and you have to know what you're pointing it at.
Yeah.
And you have to do like I did with that. I said, raise your right hand. Okay, raise your right arm, and nothing happened. And not to say that every entity is going to communicate
anyway.
with you and go if they don't want to, but
what you're looking for is confirmation, some kind of
whether there's something really
that it's
that's why we
intelligent.
do this, right? Is we want to investigate, we want to know, we want to understand what's going on. I remember one time we were investigating in an office building, and there was this one area that seemed to be really active, and we had put a REM pod in there. That when anything comes near it, it sets it off and makes noise and turns the lights on and all that kind of stuff. And so that had gone off already, and everybody had run in there. And then we had left, and then it went off again, and we came in. And this time, Rob came in with the SLS camera, and we could see the identity, and he did. He waved to us and answered
Entity.
questions.
Yeah.
Entity. I keep saying identity. I don't know why.
You're having an identity crisis.
Not having an identity crisis. I know who I am.
Okay.
Anyway,
Maybe we
so-
should get on topic here.
Yes.
Post-tsunami hauntings.
really
Are they
sad.
real? I think they are. Jesse, you spent a lot of time working on that. And would you like to tell us some of the stuff you found?
Yeah. So I have a question for Robin and Joy. Did you look into any tsunamis other than the tsunami in Japan?
I'm sorry.
Did you look into any of the tsunamis other than the tsunamis in Japan or the tsunami in Japan?
Yeah, the one in Thailand.
Cool. Okay. So I didn't have any research on that. I was just looking at what happened after the 2011 tsunami in Japan.
That's what I
So-
looked at.
I will be focusing on that.
Jesse, you have no sound. Your sound is out.
Me.
Jesse? Oh boy.
We can't
Okay.
hear you. We can't.
Your sound is out. Your sound is gone.
Oh, no.
Our worst nightmare.
I know. It's okay. We'll fix it.
She's going to go
Oh,
out.
she's going to go out and come back in.
You
I
wanna
was sitting
talk?
there fooling around with my sound, and I'm like, okay, did I do something to my
I know, I
earbuds?
heard you say it's me, and I thought,
No,
no.
it's not.
There was like music just beforehand. I was like, is
We
there something
played
starting
it.
up on the... Oh,
We
you
played
did?
it.
Okay.
Yeah, we were
yeah.
going to play
Play
that in
it
the background.
at the
for Jesse.
background.
Yeah. Here she
Okay,
comes.
here she comes back in. All right.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Now we can hear you.
Yeah, you guys went quiet too all of a sudden. So I was like,
All right. We were going to play background music. Shall we try it again? Let's see what happens. Okay. Now, could you speak, Jesse? Oh,
Oh.
It's the music.
it's the music.
How about now?
It's the music. That's why we can't hear.
Can you hear us now?
Mm.
Jesse?
We
Go
can't
on.
hear you.
Can't hear you.
That knocks Jesse out every time. So we're not going
Okay, the music. Guess it's not going to work.
Joy, would you like to go ahead and talk about what you found?
Well, I didn't know which one she was going to do first. The largest one that I found was the one in 2004. The one in
Okay.
wait a minute. I think they call it the Indian Ocean tsunami is what they call that, and 230,000 people, which is like incomprehensible, died in that. So, are you back?
I'm back.
Good.
We're not playing music.
We won't play the music this time.
I didn't know if you wanted to start there. They told me to just start with something, so
They were
that was
like,
where I was.
Vamp, Joy, Vamp.
No, go ahead. Did you find any hauntings, Joy?
Well, yeah, I found that there were like they said there was a resurgence in Buddhism because they were having so many hauntings, and I guess that's one of the religions that that addresses supernatural type things like that. And or am I talking about the Japanese? Nope. Okay, hang on. Oh yeah, no, I'm right. And but they there was one instance where, and this was on the Andaman coast of Thailand, and there was a cab driver, and he had 7 tourists that came and wanted to go to Kata Beach. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. But so he started, driving there, and he started feeling numb, and he looked in his rearview mirror, and and he looked around, and all the people were gone, and so there was nobody there. But anyway, I guess there was a security guard that was at one of the resorts, and I guess there was a big thing about seeing a lot of like foreigners and hearing a lot of foreigners for them. And they said that, I mean, this particular article said that because there's so much wealth when the tourists come and everything, it really makes an impression upon, particularly a population that has, in a lot of instances has lesser income. And so there were a lot of foreign hauntings, and this particular security guard ended up quitting. Is this some of the things that you ran across? No, I don't, because I don't want to step on anything you have.
No, you're good.
And there was also in it's KHAO and then LAK, so I don't know how to pronounce that. But anyway, there were a lot of people, a lot of families that were getting, their phones were ringing all day. And when they would pick it up, they would hear friends and family's voices begging them to help them and to save them.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. But let's see, and then they talked about Buddhism actually has, according to this, now I don't know if this is honest to goodness truth, but according to this article, that there are a lot of people that do have some superstitious beliefs, but that Buddhism scripture actually addresses dealing with supernatural things. And then they would go to monks, but apparently they don't have any form of exorcism. It's just counsel on what you would do in the instance that you were, having these spirits. But I guess there's also this form of incorporating a spirit house that tries to like corral spirits. And it didn't get into exactly how that worked, but to the spirit house that would try to drive the spirits away from each individual house. So that's kind of what I had gotten on that particular one. But
that's kind of heart-wrenching, though, to think that they would get calls from family members asking for help. I mean, when we do investigations, that's always the first thing we ask when we come across an entity is we say, do you need help? What
right.
need help with? But to have someone, I mean, what can you do? If your parent calls you or your child calls you and says, help me, and they're deceased, it's like, that's
and these were all like anecdotal. I mean, they had the towns and whatever, but they didn't have people's names or anything like that. So like, I have no like living proof that was
right.
what it was, but
no way to verify it.
Right. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's like overwhelming amount of reports, though. It's
right.
Not just a few here and there,
Right. But 230,000 souls is what that's a lot of energy and a lot of, loss and.
Well, when you go to Gettysburg, you can feel it. Whether you're a sensitive or not, I don't care. Any person that goes to Gettysburg feels that when they are there. There's no doubt in my mind.
I was going to say also there was this one mention of this woman that I guess they said she had been possessed by. Like they did, this was Japan, so never mind. I'll jump with that one. I'll jump that one in later.
Okay. Jesse, you want to tell us?
You go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, that's really interesting. And those are not the same instances. Everything that I have is from Japan. And it's interesting that there is some overlap in what people are experiencing. I find that very, very interesting. So March 11th, 2011 is when the tsunami in Japan happened. It was preceded, of course, by a magnitude 9 earthquake that lasted for 6 minutes. I don't know if y'all have experienced earthquakes. I did when I grew up when I was younger in California, and they were the most terrifying thing to me. So I can't imagine experiencing a magnitude 9 earthquake for 6 full minutes. That would have been terrifying. What happened next was what they call a super tsunami. They at first predicted it would be, I believe, 20 meters, and it ended up being 131 feet
Oh,
maximum height. They said like as tall as an 11-story building. So greatly exceeded what they were expecting. And Japan is very prepared for these events. Like, historically speaking, they have done so much to prepare their infrastructure and their people for this to happen. The area where it hit, the Tohoku region, is more rural, and it's much less city. There's a lot of like farming in that community, a lot of nature. There's a river there. People talk about it as being sort of idyllic when I read about it. I guess a lot of the rivers in Japan are not particularly nice to be around, but the river there was lovely and clean and full of salmon, and just like it was a lovely place to be, and of course right on the ocean. So after the tsunami happened, it was confirmed that 15,854 people had died. There are still 2,533 people unaccounted for. So close to 20,000 people gone in a matter of hours, minutes really, because it happened so quickly. But by the time it all came in and receded, it had been a couple of hours. And I am going to do my very best to pronounce names properly, but I am not fluent in Japanese, so I will do my very best. And I definitely want to respect the people that I'm talking about in their memory, and talk about them with respect and honor. And so I will do my very best to pronounce their names well. And interestingly, I know Joy mentioned the taxi driver. There were many reports after the tsunami of taxi drivers, and they would start their fare. And the interesting thing about it was that they have these fares recorded. So there is like an actual record of these drivers picking up these people. And one of the accounts that I heard was when it was warmer. When the tsunami occurred, it was very cold. It snowed the day that the tsunami hit. And this man was describing picking up a rider in his taxi, and the man was like wearing a big, thick, heavy coat, but it was hot outside, which he thought was strange. And he picked him up. It was daylight out, and took him to, he gave him the address to take him to, and he started driving. And as he was driving, he kind of got the feeling that the person in the back was just quiet, wasn't really talking or anything like that. And he kind of started to get like an uneasy feeling, like there was something strange about him. The way he was dressed, he was in unseasonably warm clothing for the warm weather. And when he got to the destination, he went to get out, and opened the door for his passenger, and the man was gone when he turned in the mirror. And he got out and he like opened the door and was, looking around. And as it turns out, this was happening frequently. There was a professor, Kiyoshi Kanabeshi. He's a PhD. He wrote Post-Disaster Spirituality. And he's a professor, and he had started gathering these accounts because one of his students suggested it as something that they look into. And he liked these accounts because there was an actual physical record of them. And when they started looking into them, there were more and more of these accounts from these taxi drivers. And this is the lovely thing about the people, when you read about the people in Japan, I just picked up a lot up on their like strength and their resiliency and their compassion. And he found that these fares obviously were going unpaid. And so he was trying to figure out where they were coming from, like how they were getting paid. And all of the taxi drivers said that they would pay the fare themselves. And they said that they would pick them up anytime because they got the sense that these people were, they wanted help. They were trying to get home, and they didn't realize what was happening to them. And they all felt it was a way to honor the people that had been lost, which I thought was such a lovely, kind, lovely thing to come out of this. And it's multiple different accounts of different drivers who all have these recorded fares, and they were all just quietly paying them themselves and paying their respects to the people that had been gone. They said, like, if it had been one of their loved ones, that they would want someone to do that for them. So I thought that was really lovely.
See, I had heard that that police would get calls from homes that were no longer there.
Yeah,
And
so that's one of the things I have too. So there was an author, he was living there at the time that it happened. He worked for a newspaper. He's from England. His name is Richard Lloyd Perry, and he wrote a book called Ghosts of the Tsunami: Death and Life in Japan's Disaster Zone. And I read his book, and it is really captivating, but it's very heart-wrenching to read. So, prepare yourself if you want to read it, but it is really, really fascinating. And he tells the stories of a lot of survivors and his experience, because he was there in Tokyo when the earthquake hit. And he's interviewed many people after the fact and gathered their experiences. He wrote that, let's see, he said a fire station in Tagajo received calls to places where all the houses had been destroyed by the tsunami. This is a quote from his book. The crews went out to the ruins anyway. This is rough. So they went there anyway, knowing that there was no one there, and they prayed for the spirits of those who had died. And when they did that, the calls stopped to the fire station.
that's amazing.
Yeah. And really interesting thing too, and Joy, you touched on this. Japan is considered one of the most secular countries in the world, where if there's ever like a poll about spirituality or religion, they're typically not a religious people, generally speaking, if we're painting with broad strokes, typically speaking. However, it's not as simple as that, because also in Japan, most people have a type of shrine in their home that is honoring their ancestors. And these are so important to them that I read stories about people that were experiencing the tsunami that would not leave. Their loved ones were like, we have to go. And they were trying to save these tablets in these shrines. And it was explained as if you were like trying to rescue your already past ancestors, like it's like a very tangible, real connection that they have. So I think the connection between their ancestors and their family is very important, like very important to them there. And so the way in which this happened was so sudden and tragic, and in many cases there were losses that were unnecessary and senseless and could have been prevented. And I think it was very difficult for them to cope afterwards. In his book, he talks about, in Richard Perry, is that his name? Forgot his name. Richard Lloyd Perry, I think. Yeah. In his book, he talks about a woman that he meets and he interviews, and she had a daughter named Chisato, and Chisato was 11, and she went to school. Yeah, she went to school in Ishinomaki, which is where the tsunami was the worst. And a few weeks before the tsunami, she woke up in the middle of the night screaming, and she was screaming about the school. And her mom said, what's going on, And her daughter said, the school is gone. And her mother was like, what are you talking about? Everything's okay, and helped her. And she did not survive the tsunami, and she passed away in the school. Out of all the schools in Japan, there were 75 children in the care of their teachers that were lost. 74 of them were in the school that her daughter was in. Wow.
Oh, wow.
So
Japan,
the daughter had a premonition
mm-hmm.
that she and her schoolmates were going to die in that tsunami, that the school was going to be gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's, just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know,
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. So there were a lot of stories about people experiencing someone coming to their door at night, knocking on the door, and then they would go answer the door, and there would be someone there who was wet and dripping, and they would offer them clothes, go get them clothes, give them to them, and then the person would be gone. There's another story about a group of people that were survivors that were meeting afterwards, and one of their friends who didn't make it, or one of the women that they knew who did not survive, would show up to these meetings and just appear there. And all of them saw her, and she would sit with them, and they would all have tea. And they all said that none of them wanted to tell her that she had passed.
Wow.
And then when she would leave, the cushion would be wet with seawater. I think, yeah, Richard talks about that in his book as well, I believe. So this became something that was happening very frequently. And like I said, for the most part in Japan, they're not very religious, and they also a lot of people in Japanese culture don't talk about their feelings a lot or show outward expressions of their feelings. And the best thing about that I have to talk about tonight is a man named Taiyo Kanata, and he is a Buddhist monk, and he lived nearby, and when the tsunami happened, people were coming to them to bury their loved ones, or they mostly cremate the remains of loved ones there. And so he was trying to help people facilitate that, and it was just so many people coming and coming. And he said he just felt this sense of everyone just numbness, you know, everyone was so in shock by it all. And like it was like they just were shutting off their feelings, and he could see that they needed help, and he was trying to figure out how he could help, because he was helping by feeding people, and he was helping in the community and volunteering. But he thought, what can I do, because I am a monk, and what do I have that's unique, like that I can do that other people can't do? And what he came up with was that he could listen, which I think is such a lovely sentiment. And he just felt like people needed to talk, and be able to talk to about what they were going through, in a safe place. So he and his wife decided to make something called Cafe de Monku, which is like Cafe de Monk, because the word for monk, in the English word for monk, in Japan they would say monku, and in Japan monku means pain. And so he was like, it was a play on words to him. He's like, that's funny, because people can come talk about their pain and let it out. But it's also funny because I'm a monk. And so so he thought, if I have like cake and coffee, people can come and they can talk about these experiences, because he also recognized that people were having more and more experiences. People were coming to him who were experiencing what you might call like possession, or something that felt like that.
An attachment.
There are
maybe an attachment.
Yeah, there are a couple of stories from him. One, now there is an Unsolved Mysteries about the incidents in Japan, and he is featured in it. And I loved him when I watched that, and then I looked into him after, watching it, and I love him even more. I think he's so delightful. What a good person. But in that show, he talks about a young woman that comes to him, and she is experiencing what, like she says, it feels like there are people in her head. And she asks him, like, am I crazy? Do you think I'm mentally ill? Do I need help? And he, which I think is a great place to start, because I think a lot of times with like possession and exorcism, I'm going to get on a soapbox, but I think that can be overlooked when we're looking at that in the past. But he talks with her and works through it with her, and he takes her through a sutra, which is like a prayer, basically. And he burns incense, and he listens to her, and he listens to what he believes are the spirits talking through her. And one is the spirit of a little girl, and she's very upset, and she says that she was walking with her brother, and that she let go of her brother. And they ask what happened, and she says that they both didn't make it, but she let go of him, and she felt responsible, for him being gone. And so the woman who is speaking as this little girl reaches for the monk, and he reaches out his hand to help her, hold her hand. And then she takes it, and then she starts screaming, "No, I want my mom. I want my mom." And his wife, the monk's wife, is there, and she decides to act as stand-in for the mom, and she holds her, and she says, "It's okay, let's go to the light together. You're okay. It's okay. You didn't do anything wrong, and she leaves, and the woman that had come to see them feels relief, and she feels back to normal. And by the way, his wife is named Yuko Kanata. And so I keep referring to her as his wife, and I hate that. So I can't remember her name. It's Yuko. So he tells this woman, "Please come see me anytime." And then it's really funny and cute because in the Unsolved Mysteries, he laughs and he goes, "And boy, she did." So I guess this happened to her multiple times. And the really interesting thing that he says is that, "Oh yeah, this is, by the way, this in Buddhism, this is not a Buddhist practice to exorcise people or any of that." And he said that he's had other monks that have been like, "Well, why would you do that?" And he said, "If I see a woman who is suffering, I'm going to help. And I'm not going to worry about, oh, is this part of my religion or whatever. I'm going to do what I think she needs help, so I'm going to help." Which I love so much. I love that sentiment so much. So he opened this Cafe de Monk with his wife. And not only did he do that, but he opened it up to other practitioners of other religions in the area. And he was like, "All of you come, and we will listen to the people here, and we will be a place where people can talk, and they can share, and they can tell us these experiences, and we won't judge them. We will listen. We're just going to listen." And he did that with the condition that he said religion's off the table. So he said, "If you want to come be part of this is not an opportunity for you to get them to sign up to whatever. It's not an opportunity for me to get you to sign up to be a Buddhist or them to sign up to be a Christian or whatever." He's like, "We are going to listen to the people and be a safe place for them to speak to us and do what we need to do to help them. No matter what that looks like, we're going to be here to help them." And I think that's so incredibly lovely and beautiful. And the wonderful thing is, he started doing this shortly after the tsunami happened, when many people were coming to him, and people were coming in having these experiences, and they didn't know what to do with it, and they were feeling crazy, and they were feeling pain and grief, unbearable, and shock, and loss. And he decided that if he had cake and coffee and a table, that people would come and they would talk. And that by just talking and having a comfortable, safe place, that he would show them that safety and that it was a safe place to share. and it worked. And he has been doing it since 2011. And it's a pop-up that he does. He goes to different locations with these different practitioners from other religions, and people can come and they do things like they do art together, and he plays music. He's a guitarist, and he plays music for people, and he and his wife sing and dance and are silly and joyful, because he also felt like people were so shutting down because they just were A, afraid, and B, in so much grief that they were shutting down everything. So there was no joy. They felt guilty probably for experiencing joy, and and so he knew that was important too, to bring joy back into it, and to say this is a place where you can be happy too. You can just experience joy and something fun, and that's okay too.
Jesse, could I ask you, do you remember, because I've watched that too. I've watched that same episode. Do you remember the name of that episode so how people can watch it? Because I think everybody should experience The Monk and His Wife, because I mean, they just they bring you joy just watching the segment. It's like they're so loving and kind.
Yeah.
I love them so much. It's
I
called
do
Ghost
too.
of the Tsunami, I believe.
Yeah. So try and look that up and watch it, because it's really interesting. And I wanted to touch back on something else too that you said. So you said that the firefighters would go to where there used to be homes that no longer were, but they were getting calls from there for help. And they would go knowing that there was no home there and no way anyone could be calling. And they would pray
Yeah.
for the people. And then after they prayed for the people, the calls would stop.
Yeah.
That's
wild.
I know.
It
This
is.
is why we do this. This is exactly why we do this. Is, when we investigate, we want to help both the living and the dead, because
So what?
sometimes the dead need help.
Well, so what? So people are coming to Tayo Kanata and his wife Yuko afraid because they're experiencing things that they don't understand and that
Right.
they've never experienced before. So there were people who said they would see like people walking by their house that looked like they were just covered in mud and dripping, or people. There was one man who was like afraid to go outside because he said he would see eyes when he would look in the puddles, like if it rained, and he said that he felt that he would tell the people that these entities aren't scary because they are your loved ones, or friends and neighbors and whatever. They're just other people, and that the reason why they're showing up is because they are worried for you and care for you, and that they want to be with you. And so he said it's okay that they're not scary at all, and that to tell them what happened, and to say it's okay, and that you're okay, and that it's okay to move on. So that's what he tells people, and I think that's a really lovely way to think about it. Yeah, I think that's most of the stuff that I have on this one. There were some other like anecdotal stories about different hauntings people experience. It's very similar things though, right? Like, so that there's another woman that they talk about on the Unsolved Mysteries who she lost a child, and his toys started moving. One day she would talk to him at home and say, you know, okay, like, let's have dinner together, you know, and she did that one day, and his toys lit up and started moving, and it was like a toy that you had to flip a switch on to get it to turn on. So a lot of stories like that.
We looked up the name of the episode. It was Tsunami Spirits, a TV episode, Unsolved Mysteries episode from 2020.
Yeah, watch it if you get a
Tsunami
chance.
Spirits.
It's really interesting. I think that's really good because everything we touched on is really, you know, has a lot to do with what we do, why we investigate, and, you know, how we like to help. And that we do encourage people to talk to who's ever there, and
Well,
you know,
and it was
not be
interesting
afraid.
too, that professor that I was talking about at the beginning, Kiyoshi Kanabeshi, he was saying, you know, he doesn't believe in ghosts, but he was you know, gathering all these stories, and he's the one who wrote the book Post Disaster Spirituality, and he said, you know, he doesn't believe in ghosts, that it's anything paranormal, but that there are things that you encounter or that happen that you can't explain. And I felt like a lot of what I was encountering when I was reading about these things were the sentiment that it doesn't really, they were like, it doesn't really matter, right? Like if it's a ghost or if it's a phenomenon happening within your mind, because if that's the way that your brain is processing it, it's a real thing happening to you, right? And so they were like, it doesn't really matter what the phenomenon is, but it is a phenomenon happening to people after this sort of event happens.
Right.
And
of course, phone calls to the fire department isn't happening in their mind. That's actually happening.
Right.
It sounds to me like he's kind of got a cop out there. You know, you can't have the best. I mean, he's trying to stay in the middle to
Right.
So I don't want you to think I'm a fruitcake, but there are things I can't be explaining because I'm supposed to be this professor and have this logical mind and everything. So it sounds like a cop out to me, like he's trying to walk a thin line there.
Though I do think that if you're seeing eyes in puddles and stuff like that, that could be a coping mechanism of
something like that. Yeah,
right.
definitely.
Or like a trauma response, right? Or
it could be a trauma response. It definitely could.
Yeah.
And that's why we do investigations, to try and figure out, okay, what's going on here and what's happening and how can we help these people, whether it's a dead spirit or a living spirit, whether it's a person that needs help or a departed person that needs help.
Right.
We want to help. I still remember when we went to Fort Mifflin. I mean, we experienced a lot of things there that for real couldn't be in our mind. It was no trauma or anything like that.
Right.
I felt like they definitely needed help, but they definitely did not want any help, which I find interesting. Didn't want to leave, wanted to stay there.
Did you have some things, Robin? You said you...
Well, I almost had everything that Jesse had. But I also was wondering, and I then went on to look about other disasters like Pompeii, the flooding from the hurricane in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And because I thought, I like, if it's not just trauma, but it is that these people in Japan have really had some sort of supernatural experience, let's say. Is it because of the not only abrupt severing of the energy from the body, but also the energy that brought about the incident that maybe increased the ability of the people there to have that connection, and also the amount of spirits in the area, because it's a huge number of people killed. But like when I was looking up Pompeii to see if anywhere there was any mention where people, even when they were working there, and I couldn't find anything. But then I probably, if I kept going, maybe I would have. But even like in Louisiana, I saw that there wasn't a real big uptick because there's so much going on anyway. I guess nobody noticed it.
That could very well be. Yeah.
That could very be.
But I was trying to figure out from the point of investigation,
Right.
and how, we try to figure out why there are spirits, or why
Right.
you feel that, what would have happened there that would have released so much. And it was a ton of energy. First, that huge earthquake, and then all that salt water and the speed with which it hit, and the immediate loss of life. And to me, that just seems like it was like a soup for even if it wasn't, even if they're not all seeing spirits, they all have now also been connected to death.
Yeah.
In a very forceful, very, you can't get away from it way. And that was just my opinion. Sorry.
That's an interesting point, though, about the energy from, first of all, like you said, the both events, the earthquake and then the tsunami. That's energy. That's releasing energy, and energy is energy, and
Right.
that's, and I know that when we're at certain places, our equipment will be drained real quickly. And there's a hypothesis that it's the spirits that are there that are draining the equipment in order to be able to communicate, which it could be. But of course, all of this is hypothetical. We don't really know.
Right.
Something we're trying to figure it out, right? But so when you said that made a lot of sense to me. That does make a lot of sense. And then people like the woman who that you talked about, Jesse, and I remember the monk talking about her, and I remember when he joked about the fact that, and boy, did she ever, because she'd come at 3:00 in the morning, or whenever she took him at his word when she was feeling a spirit that was in her head, she would go and talk to him. So I went in, like Robin just mentioned, maybe that opened up something in her that hadn't been opened before, and made her more receptive to feeling that.
That's what was interesting, is he was like, she had no connection to
any of those people. Yeah.
To that area. She wasn't from that area. And so that's really odd, right? Like,
yeah.
What
was
that
the one that did? Because I read about one that had 25 different spirits. Like when they would get rid of one, then just another total different person would come in, one after the other.
Yeah, probably. He said, like, because he said she would just she kept coming back and coming back and coming back. And he said her whole demeanor would change, she would take on a whole different personality. Yeah. And so it may be, her name was Ami. So it might be that.
I didn't write it down. I was also reading about, because it mentioned, that Buddhists did not do exorcisms, but there was a Zen temple, which I don't know exactly what that is, but it said the top priest, and I should have written the name down from the article because it did give the top priest, that he started doing exorcisms himself and I don't know, and maybe psychologically that helps people or whatever. Maybe he never had any training, but he was trying to help in some way, that he was doing them because they felt people were seeing their family members in the house, and they were seeing different people, and they and I also read about the fire department and the police department and stuff getting phone calls for that, but and also about the fact that there were people that died because they were trying to save their memorial tablets from the dead in their houses.
Yeah, that's sad. Like
Yeah.
trying to save a dead person, and then you died. Yeah, I'd heard that about the police too, that they would get calls also, and they would answer the calls even though they would know that the house was no longer there, out of respect. And I think that's pretty wonderful.
I do too. And there was another man that they talked about. Now he and his wife, and I think it was his mother-in-law, they lived inland, so they did not live in the area where they were affected by the tsunami. And like at first, like didn't even realize, like they I think lost power for a couple of days, didn't even realize anything major had happened at first because they didn't have any power, internet, or news, anything like that. And then after a few days, they started seeing it on TV. They decided to go take a look and went into the area where the tsunami had hit, which feels wild to me. Like, not the best choice, in my opinion. Because they weren't going to help or anything like that. They were going to
look.
And and so when they got home, I guess he remembers going home, having dinner, and he went to bed, and then he woke up in the morning, and his wife had already gone to work, but his mother was still there, and she was kind of acting upset, not really talking to him or whatever. And then his wife came home, and she was really mad at him, and he was like, "What's going on?" And she was like, "I'm divorcing you." And he was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And apparently that he had started acting super wild after they got back from the tsunami zone, and he was doing really odd things like getting on all fours and licking the tatami mats and stuff in their house and growling and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And then he went outside and he started rolling around in the field and covering himself in mud, and they dragged him back inside, and he started threatening them, saying that they had to die, that everyone was dead and they had to die. And
yikes.
So yeah,
That's scary.
and this started happening multiple times, and so he went to see Tayo Kanata, and he did the same thing for him, and he, again, he's like, we don't really have a protocol for this, but he went through the sutra, and he did incense and burned incense, and he said he felt it like a relief. And Tayo was like, you went there, because he ends up telling him, well, we went there, and they got ice cream, and we're walking around eating ice cream, looking at this devastation, and they had put up in their window disaster relief in their car when they parked it. So all of that's not great, not cute. And Tayo was like, that's why this happened to you. Don't do that
Because
again.
you're an idiot.
Yeah, don't do that again. But the interesting thing, the reason why I brought this up is you talking about the energy, is sometimes we don't think about the animals in that area,
Yeah.
right? Like not only like wild animals, but like the pets and things like that, and all of that energy as well. And they believe that it maybe was animals also attaching themselves to him because of his behaviors, that he was
Rolling in the dirt.
licking the mat and like
Yeah.
rubbing himself on the mat and stuff like a cat,
Which
you know?
is what our dog does every day.
Yeah. So that's another massive loss of life, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the
That.
pets
Yeah. I didn't think
and the
about that.
wildlife.
And you were
Yeah.
saying about how that woman wasn't from the area, but
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that she wouldn't receive the energy that
Right.
was ejected. I mean, because there are people who are actual true psychics can know something that's somewhere else in the
Yeah.
world. So she got a shot of it. Didn't matter where she was. She got a shot of it, and she was open then to everything that basically needed her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was probably making her a little nuts, but
Yeah.
everybody got helped
Yeah.
through her and through him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think she even knew she was a sensitive before that happened, probably.
Right.
Or maybe, maybe she did and she just, shut it down because it's not acceptable there to do that. I mean, not that it's real acceptable anywhere,
Right.
but some places are more open to it than others. But
Yeah.
that very interesting, really,
Yeah.
really good conversation and good talk and really good that all the stuff that you guys looked up. Was really well worth it. Sad though.
It's so sad. It was
Heartbreaking.
so sad. I
The
mean,
11-year-old girl that got me. I'm
I
like,
mean that
She knew.
she knew. And her mom, oh, that story is
What?
just so awful. It's so awful.
I
But
know.
her the story of her school is very, very tragic because that's where the 74 children were lost out of 75 that were in their teacher's care during that event. Because the schools have such good protocols for it. So that particular school just something happened, and they didn't do what they were supposed to do. So
Maybe it was beyond what they could do,
Yeah.
well,
it's like a tornado, when you're in school and you can only put the people in the area that you can, and if it is just if it's like an F5 and it just hits you right, just sucks it up, there's nothing those teachers can do.
Right.
Unfortunately, in this case, there are survivors that we kind of know what happened, and they
didn't do what they were supposed to.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't. There were
Well, that's different.
Yes. So it's very, very tragic. But it is fascinating. And that little girl, Chisato, like her mom talks about, like she always kind of she would know things before they would happen, or like know what you needed before you asked for it and stuff like that. Was always different.
It's like the day she
Mhm.
definitely should have listened.
Yeah.
That must just eat at her.
Yeah, because her daughter told her beforehand that it was
And
going to happen.
she was across the street and like from the school, and school was about to be out. There was like 15 minutes left till school was out, and she was across the street with her older son who was graduating from middle school or something, and they were going to go back home, and her son wanted to go, and she was like, oh, should I stay and pick up Chisato? and then bring her home with us. But she's like, oh, they always take like 15 minutes longer, so it'll be 30 minutes, and she can just drive the bus home, you know. And she didn't get her.
Oh boy.
Mm.
Yeah, and she was right there.
Wow.
Oh,
Which
that's
just has to be.
Yeah, hard to live with.
oh
Definitely.
boy.
Yeah.
I'll say. Yep. I just can't imagine. I really can't.
Unbearable.
Uh-huh.
It's not her fault, but it's just
No.
Right.
just would be unbearable.
Do
You know.
you think we freaked out all the audience because nobody has said anything?
Everybody's being very
Pretty quiet.
quiet.
Well,
Yeah.
sure is. Yeah,
But
pretty sure
it is
It's
really
very
Heavy.
sad and serious.
heavy hearing the serious stuff. I mean, we have a case coming up that's really interesting and that we'll be investigating in October, and it's I just really love what we do. I really do. I love being able to help people, and I love being able to reassure people. And I think sometimes that, like that mom of that girl, sometimes people, like you've been saying about the monk, and he and his wife are just, wonderful to even just watch and listen to. Sometimes people just need to talk about all this stuff and be believed.
Yeah.
Have someone believe them and have somebody to say they're not crazy, and yeah, this really is happening, and
Yeah.
and say to that mom, it's not your fault.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's not her fault, but I don't know as if she'll ever believe that it's not her fault. That's really rough.
Yeah.
That's gonna go around in her head forever. I could have taken her home. I thought about taking her home. Why didn't I listen to myself, to my own intuition?
And not only that, when the girl first told her,
Yes.
woke up all upset, it wasn't that day, right? I don't think.
So
No,
we-
it was a few.
we-
Yeah, so it wasn't like she could have picked that up and said, okay, 5 days from now or whenever it was, I'll go and send her to school. She had no idea.
Yeah.
It could have just been a nightmare she had.
Yeah,
Yet
and
it's
when
something
you-
that'll haunt her because it was said.
Exactly. But when you have premonitions or stuff like that anyway, it's so iffy in your own head anyhow, and it's so difficult to figure out, like when Beth and I were giving Jesse everything that we were picking up before we went to investigate at Haunted Hill House, right? And I had seen what I thought was a little girl. And then I felt like, no, that's not right. And I told Jesse that. I said, I'm having second thoughts about this. I don't know. And then I realized that, it was probably a little boy. And then that made more sense to me. That felt right, and that sat right. And I thought it was a little girl. I just don't think anything is that clear when we're talking about stuff like this. You can't say definitively this is what it is. Do you know what I mean? So even though that little girl had that premonition, she couldn't say when it was going to happen or what she was talking about. She had the premonition. She could see all that stuff. There was no way to be able to express or communicate to anybody exactly what that is. And that's what it is with a lot of this stuff, is you can't communicate all that, like trying.
We all have weird dreams anyway. And so how do you tell the difference sometimes between what is really something that is, until a lot of times it happened. And then you're like,
Exactly.
yeah, I didn't pay attention to that because I thought it was just another weird dream.
Exactly. That's exactly the way it happens, And I do have cuckoo silly dreams that don't mean anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if
Yeah.
I couldn't act on all of those,
Right.
No.
it's like, those are weird dreams. Yeah. And all that is my mind going through stuff and trying to
I think I mentioned about when my cousin had passed, and for a couple of weeks beforehand, knowing something was going to happen, but there was no way I knew what was going to happen or
Exactly.
when it was going to happen.
Exactly.
It was just when it happened, all of those things then
Makes
clicked
sense.
into place and made sense. Yeah.
And besides which, what could you have done?
Right.
There's nothing you could have done anyway.
No,
Yeah.
I couldn't have, contacted him and said, because for
You're
one thing,
gonna die.
yeah.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
And thanks for that call.
There's nothing you can do about it, but
Oh man.
I mean, seriously, what can you do? That's the truth, I mean, I thought about one of my cousins, and there had been no reason to think about her or anything like that, but thought about her and felt uneasy, and then your mind starts to try to make things up, and it was like, oh, she was 6 months older than me, and she had a sister then that was 6 months younger than me, and the three of us were really close. And she was 30 years old, and I just had a really bad feeling, and so you're trying to figure this out, and I'm like, oh, is her husband abusing her? And
Right. All sorts of things go through your head.
beat him up, and should I call her and ask her what she needs to talk about? And and then she passed away in her sleep of an undiagnosed heart problem.
Yeah. And even if you had said to her, I have this bad feeling, she wouldn't necessarily have gone to the doctor. You wouldn't have something definitive to tell her. And even if you did, she might have been like, no.
And I didn't have the feeling, oh, there's something wrong with her heart, she better see a cardiologist.
Right.
I just felt this feeling of something's off, something's not right. And yeah. So what can you do with that? But I think we all go back and beat ourselves up and say, if only I had done this, Yeah. That was a long time ago.
It does with Robin, what you were talking about with the energy and building, and before something like a volcano eruption or even the earthquake, because if you think about it, it's the tectonic plates shifting. So,
right.
And that's probably a lot of building pressure, right? That causes, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a scientist or a geologist, but I'm guessing here. But we do know, like with the.
This is what they do.
It is.
Yeah, and that's pressure, and I imagine that it's building to that. It's not just like all of a sudden. And same with the tsunami coming in or a volcano erupting, right? We know that's building and building and building, and then it erupts. And so, and then we know that story, that firsthand story from that girl's mother, that she had that experience a few weeks before. And so you wonder, like, how many more experiences like that, but we didn't hear, or we don't know about things building up to that, right? Like those experiences happening pre. That's why I talked about that one, because I thought that was so interesting. It's not a post-tsunami haunting, but it is something paranormal that happened prior to and in connection with it. And it does make you wonder, around both sides are things happening, and we can't see it until later,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I bet there were a lot of recognition things that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like we said, and people just don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Then you second guess yourself. Well,
I think we're at the end of another wonderful show.
Yep. Thank you to the audience for bearing with us. Sorry, it's been such a bummer.
I know, it's so sad, such a sad one. I'm sorry.
It's besides being sad, it's very interesting. I mean, how is this going on? What's happening here? You know, it'd be really interesting to figure it out, you know. But it also, you know, should be talked about. You know what I mean? It's like those people all mattered, you know. They still do, you know.
Yeah, like what Joy was talking about was 230,000 people. I didn't realize it had been that many. That's just.
That's sad.
And the trauma of just, I mean, because, you know, a lot of that is coastal and just bodies washing up. I mean, just the horrific impact that would have on you mentally, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
for months and years afterwards, you know.
If you ever stop seeing that, in your head.
Yeah,
we know how long the effects of just the hurricanes that come through Florida, even the ones that aren't severe, they cause so much damage, and people have to live with that for months, and most people think, I think, that after a few weeks that things are back to normal again. No, a lot of the effects go for
our son
years
is still dealing with
that,
the aftermath of. I'm sorry, this is Paul Hollis. Now.
I'm not sure if it's because the show's gone on so long. You got a show. So sad. I'm hoping you just need to go shave. So.
I'm not, no, however, Paul, I'm not sure we can ever do a happy show about.
I know. It always starts with tragedy or sadness. You know, it always starts with something sad.
We could do a Scooby-Doo edition. That's what we could. That'd be a little lighter.
The reason I was going to talk about Fort Mifflin was because, you know, we had talked to so many spirits there, Jesse, that didn't want to leave, right? It was like, you know, you don't have to stay here anymore. You're not under arrest anymore. But a really funny thing I thought happened there is that we were sitting doing a session asking questions and you know, getting answers through our different instruments. And this young man who was there with his father, and I think the young man was probably 19 or 20, wouldn't you say, Jesse, about that age?
I think he was younger than that.
Maybe 16 then?
Yeah.
He was a young man anyway. And he said to his dad, well, I want to be with them. And his father said, I don't know if they want you around. You know, he said, no, you can come and you can come with us. And there was this, supposedly in this one part of the fort, there was a prisoner who used to hurt blonde women. And so they had said to me, you know, you need to be careful when you're in there. And so we were in there and asking questions and actually made contact with that spirit. And the young man said, do you want to hurt her? And I was like,
you're like, whoa.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
And the spirit answers yes, and I was like, thanks.
Is that the one that followed you home?
No. The one that followed me home was very he was friendly. He was not dangerous or anything. He scared my daughter-in-law a lot, but you know, he didn't bother the rest of us. We all found him quite entertaining, actually. But no, this guy, that guy had killed women, and I'm like, you know what? I really don't want him. Yeah. Do you want to hurt her? And that made me laugh so hard.
Paul wanted to go on record here. He said, no, it was a great show.
Yeah, so. Thanks, Paul. We all enjoyed your comment anyway.
So today's...
He always brings a little levity.
Yeah, I know. I love Paul.
Today's September 28th.
Yeah.
the merch on Tampa Bay Spirits 1.com
Yeah.
will be on sale for the next 3 days. So if you're listening to this or watching this within that time period, you can get up to 35% off on our wonderful
Cool stuff.
merchandise. Cool stuff. T-shirts, mugs, and all sorts of
Tote
stuff.
bags. The tote bags are really good, you guys. They're
Art.
really, really, and the art on the tote bag is the same as we have on our shirts right here. See?
Right.
But it's huge because the tote bag is huge. I just think it looks really cool. I have 2 of them. I may have 3 of them by tomorrow.
Our next show should be October 26th, which is the last Thursday in October.
Okay.
Not sure what what we have an idea for the topic, but I'm not sure. I can't remember what it is, so we'll have to go look it up, and we'll get it out pretty soon.
Yeah.
We were talking about maybe time slips versus
That's it.
It was Robin's idea. It was Robin's idea.
Yeah, time slip. So I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to be
that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So write that down so we don't forget. Because
in the future, a time slip.
Yeah. And we have done some investigating before about time slips, and it's fascinating. It really is. And so many people have experienced it, that, and other people have posited the idea that what we're dealing with here is actually not hauntings, but time slips. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking, like the time slip versus residual haunt. Which is it? Are they the same thing? Yeah, just out of curiosity. I thought it would be a good discussion.
And also the discussion as to whether it's just a different dimension that where for some reason there's a bleed over,
Yeah.
I mean, and really and truly all of that is possible. We don't know because we are talking to something that you can't see. We're communicating through different things. The SLS camera.
So before we have a time slip, I think we better sign off.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see you on October 26th.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robin, Joy, and Jess for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Next
thanks for
time,
having us.
hopefully we'll
Good
have
night.
Beth and Les with us. And I guess until next time.
That's all, folks.